have an interesting article to share with you. This article appeared in the 8th issue of the Michigan History Magazine and is fascinating. And it's titled, Some Indian Graves at Escanaba by Mrs. James Hannibal Clancy. And she lived in Detroit at the time. Okay? The rushing Escanaba River, after 125 miles of its twisting course, broadens out and empties into Little Baie de Nauquet, and 4 miles south, where the water laps the shores north and south of Sand Point, is built the city of Escanaba. During the years previous to the 50s of the 19th century, this point was a dismal wilderness. Indians, wolves, and bears were numerous. Hither the Chippewas brought their dead, and wrapping them in their blankets, buried them in the sand. Then, as the winds and storms of the years laid low the poles and brush that marked their graves, and the sand drifted over them, the white men came and built their homes. Now, there is much evidence that the Indian battles were fought here. In all probability, one tribe came from the shores of Big Baie de Nauquet, landing on the south beach, and an enemy coming down from Little Baie de Nauquet swept up from the northern shore of the point. Now, as the waves met in defiance on the shoals, so the two hostile tribes clashed in turbulent conflict, and today a great mound rises where the bones of the vanquished lie in confusion. Now, I don't know if that mound is still there or not. I looked for information on it. I didn't find anything on an initial search of the internet. Many Indian burial mounds were destroyed throughout Michigan. And very few exist where there had been probably thousands, literally. So, but anyways, let's continue. In 1867, a party of explorers passing through the village of Escanaba made some research, opening one of the mounds and finding broad silver bracelets and other silver ornaments. Now the Chippewa across the bay, hearing of this depredation, came over in their canoes and held lamentations over the open graves of their ancestors. All night their wails, shrieks, and strange animal-like cries were heard, and when their fury and their grief were spent, they crept back again in the early gray of the morning. By far the most important find was made in 1901 by H.W. Van Dyke, who had lived in this locality many years before it was ever named Escanaba. And one day he dug deep to sink a post, and the spade turned up more than just earth. It brought up a skull of unusual size, and get this, with a double row of teeth, such that if this Indian gnashed his teeth in anger, what a mighty gnashing that must have been. I've heard other accounts of here in the northeast woodlands of native skulls being found with unusual double rows of teeth, and were quite large in stature, although this doesn't mention the size of the individual anyways. But better still, beautiful silver ornaments and crosses were found. Now, Mr. Van Dyke, being discreet and realizing the importance of his find, did not break the silver and sell it as did many explorers, but treasured it carefully. The crosses, when found, were attached to a large brass ring, which evidently had been about the Indian's neck who was buried there. Silver earrings, small buckles, fragments of a mirror, a coil of copper wire, a stone hammer, and a pipe, also a bit of fabric with colored beads, were all unearthed from this one particular grave. Now, from St. Ignace west along the shores of the Upper Peninsula and following the Fox River in Wisconsin, similar silver pieces had been found, thus proving that they were given to the Indians by the early French explorers and missionaries. Now, in 1673, Joliet and Marquette took this route to Illinois, and Abbott, in his story of La Salle, gives a minute description of the little party entering Green Bay and being stormbound on a sandy point of land. Now, this may have been the present location of Escanaba. It's not sure. Now these delicate silver pieces are thin and hand engraved, and each with a different pattern, and some are of ecclesiastical origin, while others are merely ornamental. The crosses with the double and triple bars are of the archiepiscopal, patriarchal, and papal origin. Why don't they just say Catholic instead? Having the most part only heraldic existence. Many of the double crosses have been found, but as far as I have been able to follow this rather elusive research, the triple cross is extremely rare. These unearthed by Mr. Van Dyke are the only ones so far found in Escanaba. Now, Mr. Harry Spooner, in an article written for the Detroit News of February 24th, 1918, describes in a very interesting manner the finding of 4 double-barred crosses at Flat Rock, 4 miles north of Escanaba, giving the information that it was common. It was a common form in the early churches and may be seen on some Byzantine monuments. Now, the upper bar is the broad. The upper bar is the broad to contain the little piece placed over the head of Jesus by Pilate's order, which I think it said off the top of my head, Jesus, King of the Jews. Other authorities state that the extra arm denotes the additional power granted the Jesuit missionaries as they labored in remote regions far from church jurisdiction, and the very Reverend James Savage of the Holy Trinity Church of Detroit says that the missionaries, in their efforts to teach the doctrine of the triune God, used the triple cross. LaSalle, who studied for the priesthood and who had a brother who was a member of the Sulpitan Order in Montreal, quite evidently carried many of these sacred symbols into the wilderness of the New World. And one may, in imagination, see the illustrious and courtly young man as storm pursued, and he and his party drew their little boat up in safety on the beach, being surrounded by the wary and curious Indians. Now the chief, seated in quiet dignity, would greet these newcomers, and when a friendly relationship was established, would receive the silver crosses and ornaments in exchange for his store of pelts, animal pelts, furs. The old chief, when conquered by death, had all his treasures placed with him. Even the small glass vial was not forgotten. Remedy for some malady which his medicine man's incantations could not cure. Or possibly a holy water was in the vial and was placed in the grave to serve as an introduction to the white man's heaven. I have no doubt that there are many more such graves waiting for another man with a spade. Here's the work for the newly organized Michigan State Archaeological Society. And that ends the article. Now, the illustrations that I've used to accompany this were from the actual article. Photographs are ones that I tried to find that would illustrate the text adequately. I hope you enjoyed this. The early missionaries, the Jesuits, who are so maligned by their name nowadays, were the first early missionaries into what would be the United States and Canada. And they had quite an immense job to do in trying to bring Christ to the Native American Indians, who had their own pantheon of gods that they worshipped. They didn't call them gods, they were spirits. Everything had a spirit, and they revered those spirits. So that's what I have for you tonight. I hope that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing it to you. I love you all very much on the other side of that monitor, and you better not ever forget that. I will see you again real soon, God willing. Have a great night.